101.1. Marshall Chriswell is with us. Of course, it's another installment of Martial Law, and this program intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law constantly changes. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem, each of which depends on their individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of those differences, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. There's one of those right across the microphone for me right now. Let's say hello to Marshall Chriswell. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have been talking recently about making sure that everything's lined up with your estate, with power of attorney. Last week we were talking about that. This is a whole different world in which we live than the one we lived in even 3 years ago, let alone 5, 10, or 15, maybe the last time somebody took a look at these things. But in today's world, there is so much that is going on that is not on a piece of paper and is not person to person, but literally in the clouds and on the cloud. And I want to talk this morning about that. Who has the rights, if you should pass away, to access what you have electronically out there somewhere? Because people might not even know it's there, let alone whether or not somebody has the right to access it.
Right. That is a fantastic question, and it is one that legislatures and courts all over the country are grappling with right now. As time passes, this issue of digital assets and who can access your electronic life when you become incapacitated or pass away is only going to become a more pressing issue. And there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to this right now, but I can tell you what steps you should take to make sure to do the best that you can to make sure that those things are wrapped up in the way that they should be. The first and number one thing is to address them in your estate plan.
Okay.
To specifically address them. If you have a financial power of attorney, as we've discussed, everybody should. That there should be a provision in there regarding digital assets, saying exactly how much access you would want your financial agent, your power of attorney, to have to access those things. And when we're talking about digital assets, I mean, this is everything from your electronic bank accounts, online banking, investment accounts, your email, the contents of those emails, the passwords to access them, any of your digital accounts.
See, I was going to ask you, define for folks who aren't aware just how broad that is, what a digital asset is.
Right. So it's, all those financial accounts and the usernames and passwords, the credentials to access them, social media, email, photos, videos, anything that you're storing in the cloud. Basically, anything that you own or anything that you have subscribed to that is accessible digitally. Mm-hmm. So it is extremely broad. And like I said, as time goes on, more and more people are living, in the cloud, maintaining more and more of their information and their property digitally.
Yeah.
So yeah, number one thing is make sure it's addressed in your estate plan, in a financial power of attorney. You can give broad access to your agents. You can limit access. There are some things that people want to keep private, and that maybe they hope go to the grave with them.
Sure.
Those things exist. So, you can limit it. You can give broad access, but the biggest thing is making sure that you address it, and then also in your will, addressing it there. So, that is the biggest thing, and the reason that that's so important is because here in Pennsylvania, we don't have any law that deals with digital assets and the rights of agents, executors, administrators, guardians, the rights of those people to access digital assets for the person that they're acting on behalf of. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania legislature there was a law that in 2015 there was a digital asset law for fiduciaries like we're talking about that passed the House, but it's been languishing in a Senate committee since 2015.
Yeah.
So there is no law in the books dealing with this issue.
So in that case, property rights would revert to other property rights that aren't specifically addressing that area of the world?
It would be, up to interpretation, because there's nothing in the statutes that specifically address digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be up to interpretation, and you would have what we have now, which is you're dealing with service providers in a piecemeal kind of basis. So, for instance, someone has a Gmail account. They pass away or they become incapacitated. Their agent needs to access that account to get certain information to wrap up their affairs. Mm-hmm. I just looked this morning, actually, thinking about this issue at the terms of service for your Google accounts, and they require that the person during their life actually set up what's called an inactive account status. What happens if I'm not able to access this account? Who do I give the power to do that? So you have to deal with Google on a one-on-one basis during your life to set that up. Same thing with any other accounts that you have.
Well, and what you think of in that case is Amazon.
Yeah,
because Amazon works off of in a number of different ways financially. You can do gift cards and just keep adding to your account balance by adding gift cards, and you can build up hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of account material there with Amazon. Or you also do provide your credit card so that if you exceed what you have in your account on gift cards, they automatically access your credit card.
Right.
When you are incapacitated or even deceased, that material sits there. Who gets it?
Right, and Amazon,
or does anybody?
Amazon doesn't know that you've passed away or become incapacitated, and that leads me into kind of my next point, which is, the second thing that you should do, other than putting the provisions in your estate plan to deal with this. The second very important thing you should do is put together that information. Okay, where do I have online accounts? So think about, all right, what are the things that I do in my digital life that someone would need to know about in the event that I was incapacitated or passed away? Mm-hmm. Put those things somewhere.
Compile it all together
in a file, in a paper file or a computer file, where your agent, executor knows where they can be located, so that they can access those accounts. I don't know from an IT perspective or what the safest way to do that. I tell people, get a paper file and put it in your desk drawer and mark it when I die.
You've said that before.
Yeah, and tell people your trusted people that are in those roles where those things are, and then they can look and they can say, okay, here's the Amazon username and password, and this is how I access it. This is who, and you do that for all sorts of things. This is who the life insurance agent is. This is who the attorney is that handled the estate planning. All those kinds of things. But in this context, those usernames and passwords and the location of those accounts is just absolutely crucial.
Now, I don't know that this is actually done. You do, so you can tell me, because people's lives get so turned around, and something is stored here, and then a piece of furniture is moved or something, and all of a sudden, the person that you've left this file for, whether it's something that's left on a flash drive or in a paper file, no one can find it. Is it a good idea, or do people do this? Do they say to their attorney, here's this information, if I die, you hand this over to X person?
Yeah.
People do that?
Absolutely. That's something that I can hold in my confidential files. And yes, I can turn it over then to the agent or the executor, because they would have a legal right to it, and so that's something that some folks have definitely taken advantage of that opportunity.
And when you do that, of course, that all becomes part of your estate planning, I would assume, as you're setting up your estate, or it could. But then the others, you bring them in on the whole idea and say, well, this is where this is going to be. This person is going to have it. My attorney's going to have it. He'll be contacting you should I die.
Yeah, and the communication with those appointed folks is critical to the success of your estate plan. In most cases, you're going to want to sit down and talk to those folks and say, listen, I've appointed you as my financial power of attorney. Maybe ask them if they'd like to serve as financial power of attorney. But once that's settled, then, okay, here is where everything is. Here's the contact information for the attorney. If there's anything you can't find, call him, because I just see so many situations where things fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that I was wondering about, is because we do have lives that are so confused, and things change so much, and a part of that then becomes we're changing passwords all the time. Keep it all up to date.
Keep it up to date, or use a password manager service.
Mm-hmm.
There are those. I use one where you just have one password for this this password manager program, and it creates random passwords for all of your other accounts. So you only need to remember one.
Okay.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So electronically, it can be very, very helpful. But at the same time, you need to protect yourself and make sure that those around you are protected as well. And your electronic life is passed along too, so that it doesn't have to go through a court and through all kinds of hoops in order to get everything straightened out.
That is the goal. We've talked about that time and time again. All this planning and the little bit of time and expense now saves a huge headache down the road. Absolutely.
Well, set up that consultation right now, boys and girls, and this is something that maybe you haven't considered, and especially if you've had your will and it's been 5 years or 3 years or however long since you've addressed it, maybe that's something that you want to revisit with your attorney right away.
I think you're absolutely right.
Okay, so to do that, and if your attorney happens to be a guy named Marshall Chriswell, or if you would like it to be a guy named Marshall Chriswell, what must folks do?
Give me a call at 724-465-5826. Stop in the office in the Atrium Building, 665 Philadelphia Street here in downtown Indiana, or find me online at www.westernpalawyer.com.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
He's Marshall Chriswell. It is Indiana in the Morning on AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM.